And just another reminder along the path is one of the things that the mind or identity or ego, however you want to look at it, is excellent at doing is getting us to position ourselves. It wants to make a conclusion and wants to gain a sense of certainty, even if that looks like it's positioning itself against itself. Thoughts really like to reject thoughts in order to take another position. It will play whatever game is necessary to survive. This is the nature of that mechanism. So this short video is about the compassion for the thoughts and also to watch the reflective judgments of thought, to watch how we start to recognize patterns. And in those patterns, we start to see that there is something that we judge. We have words like opponent or insidious or treacherous or crafty or liar or all of these particular things when it comes to thought. And what we don't often realize is that's just a reaction to a reaction. We're simply noticing a thought and then taking another position based on those thoughts. The inquiry we can use here is, can you know a thought that you haven't had another thought about? And that's basically what it's doing, is it's generating a secondary thought, tertiary reaction, something to get us to take a position against it. And as long as we're remaining exclusive or rejecting something, or as long as we're taking a position, we are essentially doing the same thing. And this is one of the trickiest aspects of thought. This is why many of the pointings go into the body. Pay attention to the emotional sense, the sensational sense, and let awareness reside there. Let attention exist in the body where there seems to be no thought, where no evaluation is really taking place, where something more intuitive is occurring. It can be really beneficial for us to find some compassion in the thoughts, to recognize that the thoughts themselves are simply doing the best that they can, that really, given its limited scope of reality, it's its own reflective experience, that really it's just a facet of this reality. And even though it wants to claim some sort of domain, it's just simply a part of it. It's a part of the landscape. These thoughts, these beliefs, these positions that it is suggesting for us. And what we notice is that there is something in the maturity of this path that we can call the contextual experience, that really anything that is presented with its own context, inherent self-defining phenomena. And if we don't apply it to a secondary context, which seems to be the nature of thought, the content of thoughts, then the context will speak for itself, that it doesn't have to be molded or essentially jammed into a box. It does seem like all experience is inherently formless, like a fluid, and that we could create a box of context, and that's basically what the personality or the identity is. It's this glass box, and we could close that glass box and the air inside will conform perfectly to all of the corners and the sides of that box. But that doesn't mean that just because it's contained or seems to be contained in the box that it is the box. So see if you can start to notice that the context is presented immediately, the actual context of the experience, the unknowable context, the experiential context, a feeling, a sensation. And this is one of the benefits of moving into the acute sensational experience as is. Because once we do so, we start to see that the context is constantly changing. It's dynamic. It doesn't remain in any particular way. We can't really take a position with that. We can't really see it in any particular way. And somehow that experience itself, the dynamism involved, begins to pull us in, and we become pretty profoundly engaged in that experience. So much so that there is no one experiencing it, that subject does meet object in the richness of the sensations and the feeling experience and the sensing experience. So to have compassion around thought is to notice that we are also being offered oftentimes a secondary judgment around the thought. Something to essentially say, oh, it's being crafty, it's being evil, it's lying, it's modifying something. And instead of really taking another position in thought around that thought, we simply take that thought and we notice the edges of that thought seem to correspond with something else. And I'm just saying something else loosely here, of course, because it does seem to be co-arising experiences that in that thought that is showing up, that is attempting to essentially give us a context within the content of that thought, that there is something else corresponding that is absolutely sensational that isn't contained in the content of thought, something we can feel. Oftentimes in the trunk of the body, it could be anywhere. It could be a sense of sound. It's where essentially attention is residing that isn't thought itself. And then you'll see what will happen is another thought will come up, essentially referencing that thought. This is what I mean by the reflective sense of thought, that there's a judgment that this thought is distracting me, or it's fooling me, or there's something wrong here. Even that is an offering that we don't have to be complicit in. It's almost like the secret language of these thoughts is somehow moving outward. It's a verbing that's happening. It's not really in the content. And what you'll start to see is on the edge of those thoughts is something else that is much more direct, much more intuitive, and essentially sensational in some way. Attention moves there automatically. In fact, it's already there. And this is where we begin to see essentially a quantum experience where somehow attention is everywhere. And that the nature of thought is one who is somehow observing and collecting that into a wavelength of experience that basically has some preconceptions, it has some preferences. So watch that reflective nature. Watch the judgment that comes up that calls those thoughts sneaky or insidious, and don't participate, don't allow yourself to become complicit. Instead, notice that as another thought and move attention directly into feeling. Or, more accurately, notice that sensation is already occurring. And something in that will show us that there is an intuitive sense in all of this path, and our relationship with thought seems to become more well-rounded. See if that does anything. And as always, questions and comments in the comment section is always appreciated.